example might be filling an area of your resume that's missing, complementing a task or a role that you already do, or maybe assisting you with knowledge for your role that might be something that you've not experienced as a professional. Let's say you're volunteering in your community. It could be perhaps, let's say, a Habitat for Humanity chapter. A tangible factor of volunteering, it could literally be the room that you helped paint within the house, or it could be a fence that you helped build with the family. So those are tangible factors. They can be seen and touched and felt. Intangible factors are equally as important, and they're a little bit secondary sometimes to the work we do, and because they don't take on more of a physical form, we might forget about them. But an intangible factor might be the feelings that you get from volunteering. It could be the fun that you experience when you volunteer with a group. It could be the sense of accomplishment or self-worth that comes from volunteering. Maybe using the same example of Habitat for Humanity, I think an intangible factor could be maybe seeing the smiles on the faces of a family as they're moving into a new home, or maybe hearing from neighbors about the positive impact a new home is having on the neighborhood. An intangible factor you might think about at work might be your sense of accomplishment that you feel when you volunteer for another committee, and together you and your committee members reach a goal that you're hoping to reach. That could really give you, again, this sense of worth. I'd say whether tangible or intangible, the common element when volunteering is the motivation that we feel to volunteer. So what pushes or drives us to want to volunteer, whether for our community or for a professional organization? Again, what is that motivation? And I'd say, motivation often comes from two different sources. One can be internal, and the other one can be external. Or another way that you might look at motivation that pushes us to volunteer is the impact that it might have on ourselves and the impact on others. So I'd say no matter what type of volunteering you're doing, your work will impact yourself and other people that you come in contact with. So I'm going to start with the external factors, as I think this is where most people tend to focus when they're thinking about volunteering. So we think about volunteering often as something we do for others, primarily because many of us don't really initially think about volunteering and how it might benefit ourselves. So this external motivation for volunteering is very real, and it's very normal. And it could include maybe your desire to help in a situation that's occurring. It could be that in your professional career, you might feel motivated to take on a special task for a team that you belong to with your colleagues. It's like, raising your hand, so to speak, because you want to help. If you volunteer in your community, it could be maybe if there's a flood that occurred or something, literally filling sandbags or something. Again, your desire to help. Another factor is your belief that you might have a skill that could benefit others. So thinking about your professional career, you might volunteer to be the treasurer for a conference that your office is hosting because you have a comfort and a skill set with finances. You feel you could share that skill. Again, maybe looking at your community, you might volunteer to be the treasurer for a nonprofit organization because, again, you feel you have a skill in finances. Sometimes our external motivation might be driven by a sense that there's a need for our volunteer help. Thinking about your professional work, it might be stepping up to be an advisor for an organization because they lost their advisor and they really are in a place where they do need someone to help out with it. An example I was thinking of in a community could be maybe you volunteered to be the point person for the neighborhood watch because the previous person moved away. So again, you're fulfilling a need that's helping others. And I'd say the last one has to do with being asked. Many of us who do the work we do in higher education, we probably came into the role with a previous history of saying yes when asked to do something. So again, in our careers, we may volunteer for a committee, let's say outside of our office, because a colleague asked us to be a part of that committee. It feels good to be asked. In our community, maybe our friend or a family member asks us to volunteer on an organization. And again, it feels good to be asked to do that. So I think this external motivation can provide us the drive and the push to become involved in voluntary opportunities. And it's a normal factor in our decision to volunteer to think about what we might be able to do for others. But I would also say an equally important factor, and one that we may not always keep in the forefront of our minds, is the internal motivation that volunteering can provide us. The internal motivation may be an even more important factor influencing our decision to volunteer, but it's not one that we think about first and foremost. I'd say, though, the importance of this internal motivation increases for us when we find ourselves juggling our work and life balance. At times like that, volunteering for something is the last thing we may be thinking about. But I would tell you that making volunteering a part of your everyday life may be the most important thing that you could do to regain some sense of balance. And here's why. Volunteering allows us the ability to pick up a new skill set that could complement our professional work. So maybe, again, an example is a professional might be volunteering on a selection process, which will help inform our future selection processes, which we may then be fully responsible for. So it helps us to learn something new. Volunteering also provides us an opportunity to network with others outside of our world of work, perhaps. Maybe find new friends who work in other offices or on other committees here within your university or college, or those maybe who live within your neighborhood or your town. In a moment, I'm going to share the financial benefits of networking. But the benefit of finding new or more friends is something that can help each of us as we seek a sense of belonging in our organization or community. Feeling good about something we have done or are doing is a strong motivation. Volunteering at work or in your community gives you the chance to make a difference in your life and those of others around you. I'd say there's nothing more satisfying than that on a personal level. And I'd say the last internal motivation is volunteering can be good for your mental health. You might wonder, like, how's that? Well, volunteering can really help you not get caught in a rut and feel like you're doing the same thing day in and day out. When you find a new or a different outlet, it can actually increase the motivation you feel for your current work, since it allows you to take a break and maybe focus on something else for a period of time. So again, we've looked a little bit at external and internal motivation that impacts our desires to volunteer. I think another area that's important to consider when you're thinking about volunteering is really the value of what volunteering can do for you. There's a number of areas in which volunteering really does add value to your life. And they include volunteers tend to live longer and they're healthier. Volunteering helps you physically function longer, and there's many studies that are showing that it really helps support your psychological well-being. Again, it could go back to that idea of if you are volunteering and feeling that you're contributing or it's helping your sense of worth, then your psychological well-being will feel even more positive. Volunteering establishes strong relationships. You know, I was reading that they say people are lonelier than ever before. We have a lot of online connections, but they're really typically not long-lasting ones. And so when you volunteer, you get an opportunity to work alongside others who maybe believe in your cause, and I can tell you it can develop some pretty strong relationships. And it's really beneficial for you to be able to make friends both in work and outside of work. Volunteering is good for your career. People who volunteer tend to make more money. And I think part of that is it's the relationship building that they do, and that can lead to financial benefits. You gain maybe access to new information and opportunities. You make social connections with others when you volunteer, and it could lead to career gains. I will tell you, working within this region, or I should say volunteering within the AIMHO region, I've seen a lot of folks who through networking, it has led to them moving on within our association to different positions at different institutions, all because of the relationships they made with others through volunteering. Volunteering is also good for society. You know, many places rely on volunteers to keep the infrastructure going. In our communities, we probably see this often if we attend museums or social service agencies, maybe faith-based organizations. And, you know, at work, it could be when our student affairs office asks for volunteers to help at a concert on campus, or asks for volunteers to help with a peer mentoring program. So again, there's often needs that are needing to be met, and volunteering might be the only way to make that happen. And I'd say the last way that volunteer really does add value to your life is really gives you a sense of purpose. Because, you know, again, you're choosing to spend time on issues you feel strongly about, or on things that you really enjoy within your professional career, or maybe things that are different from what you typically do within your professional career. I'd say the importance of volunteering takes on varying levels of significance at different times in our lives. So maybe for younger professionals who are thinking, you know, I don't have time to volunteer in between taking classes and having homework to do. And maybe for all of us who are every day trying to balance our work and social life, we might feel there's just no way that I have time to volunteer. But I would put a little challenge out to everyone that you might really want to reconsider this, because volunteering could be the most important thing you do for both your personal and professional life. And here's why. Volunteering can actually help you rebalance your life. Again, if you find a cause that you might believe in, it could be more relaxing and energizing for you to be able to spend a little bit of your time and focus on that. Volunteering can support you in your resume building. It helps you develop different and maybe more refined job skills. It helps you broaden your experience. Volunteering gives you the opportunity to enhance your education with hands-on opportunities, whether it's at work or in a community. And I'd also say that volunteering helps support professional and personal goals by allowing you to pick and choose areas of interest, areas that you're passionate about, areas that maybe fill a hole in your professional development. We can't always do that within the job that we currently do, but volunteering outside of our current job or within our community will allow you to do that. So I'd say volunteering can actually support your purpose and your plan in your career and in your life. And I just say that I speak from personal experience that volunteering in both my personal and professional life has definitely helped to support my plans and my goals. So at this time, I'd like to shift gears a bit. I want to speak about volunteer opportunities within the AIMHO Association. And these volunteer opportunities are open to all AIMHO members. There's a quote I've put up here that comes right off of our AIMHO webpage. Volunteerism is the lifeblood of AIMHO. And I'd say this is really our association's mission when it comes to our committee involvement. The AIMHO Association, we've had a 62-year history within this region. And within that time, it has been completely supported by volunteers within our region. And we are the largest region of housing officers within the United States. We represent 8 western states and Saskatchewan, Canada. So again, for 62 years, we've really survived, you might say, as an association by colleagues across the association, volunteering on committees and volunteering within the association. I'd say there's ample volunteering opportunities for you. And you don't have to attend the AIMHO conference in order to volunteer. In fact, the vast majority of the work that we do within AIMHO happens outside of the annual conference. So if you're concerned about not getting involved because you can't attend the conference, believe me, we need you to be involved. And don't worry about the conference. It's not something that has to be a part of your committee work. If you want to find information about committee involvement, I put the web page up there, www.aimho.org, and you'll see a tab on that home page that lists committees. And if you click on it, you'll see a variety of committees that are out there and also how you can sign on for those. There's an online application process for committee volunteers that should be opening soon. You know, the application will remain open during and shortly after the annual AIMHO conference. And for those of you who may not be attending AIMHO, it's next week in Las Vegas on the 12th to the 14th of November. But we'll do a lot of discussing at AIMHO about the help we need from volunteers within the region to be on our various committees. If you sign on for a committee, you'll begin your service on January 1st, and it would end on December 31st. One thing that's very important, though, is that supervisory support is really important to ensure that you're able to fulfill your duties, and also the period of time that's required for the committee. So be sure, if you're thinking about signing up for an AIMHO committee and volunteering for it, that you talk to your supervisor to make sure they're supportive of your time. I'd also say, if you're thinking of volunteering on a committee, you might ask yourself, how does this volunteering fit my professional development plan? And that way you can select to volunteer on a committee that you feel might fulfill a need, or maybe it's something you're passionate about, which helps you with your purpose and your plan. Service on a committee for a period of time, if you get involved, it also makes you eligible eventually to become a co-chair or maybe even a chair of a committee. And there's also an application for that as well. So I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to go through each of the committees within AIMHO pretty quickly, but at least to give you a quick overview as to the various volunteer opportunities that exist out there. The first one is our AIMHO 365 committee. And really their focus is on AIMHO's core association goal of providing year-round learning opportunities for all individual members within the region. And so committee members help to develop and engage in webinar series, much as the one that's being sponsored right now on volunteering. Committee members such as Shadeen and some of the rest of the committee have helped to organize this webinar. They also assist with the show forum, which is really an opportunity for senior housing officers to meet and share updates during the annual conference. They share best practices, information. It's just a wonderful opportunity for our senior housing officers to come together. And AIMHO 365 also looks for ways to promote the association and state-sponsored professional development opportunities via a lot of different social media outlets. The next committee is the AIMHO College Committee. And AIMHO College is a pre-conference opportunity for new professionals. And these new professionals are maybe 3 or less years within their profession, or they might be new to the AIMHO region as well. The AIMHO College conference, or pre-conference, I should say, is held just prior to the AIMHO conference. Members of this committee help to organize the sessions that are led by senior housing officers within the region. These faculty members, as we call them, share their knowledge and their expertise with new professionals who are attending AIMHO College. The AIMHO College attendees, they also get an opportunity to improve their functional skills, maybe gain self-awareness, network, gain a greater understanding of the university housing profession during their 1.5 days together. So being on the AIMHO College Committee means you get to assist in planning the AIMHO College pre-conference. Another committee is the Assessment and Information Committee. You know, the members who volunteer on this committee help develop our regional housing survey, which goes out to all of our senior housing officers among all of our member schools within AIMHO. You know, the Assessment and Information Committee, they'll help in sharing pertinent data regarding our housing operations. You know, maybe they'll be able to share how many bed counts do we have within the region, who's doing new building and upgrades to infrastructure. What are some of the latest programming ideas and initiatives that are happening within our halls on our various campuses? The Assessment and Information Committee also organizes and oversees the poster session, which occurs during the AIMHO conference. This is an opportunity for participants to share the various assessment activities that they've engaged in at their institutions while they're at the conference. And they can share it with other conference members who can come by and look at the posters and find out what assessment is happening within the region. The next committee is our Awards and Recognition Committee. I mean, basically, the volunteers who help on this committee, they just help to say thanks to our many volunteers across the association and during the annual conference. Volunteers who put in numerous hours on behalf of AIMHO. Members oversee the nomination and the recognition of professionals within the region for a variety of awards, from undergraduate, graduate, entry-level, mid-manager, and senior staff as well. Our members of the Awards and Recognition Committee also oversee the AIMHO History Booth, which is on display at the annual conference. This is really a snapshot of our 62-year history as an association that's put on display during the conference. And, you know, when appropriate, our Awards and Recognition Committee, they also help to recognize a senior housing person who's chosen by our AIMHO president to be their SAGE. And what that means is basically to be a consultant to the president during their presidency. The next committee is our Diversity and Social Justice Committee. And, you know, the members of this committee volunteer to help our region stay knowledgeable and up to date on diversity and social justice issues that are impacting the work we do within the region. You know, if we all believe that we are lifelong learners, these volunteers on the Diversity and Social Justice Committee really assist all of us in broadening our knowledge base within our profession. They also help in making sure that at the annual conference, it's an affirming place for all, and it supports the varied needs of our members who are in attendance at the conference. The next committee is our Marketing Committee, and I'd say this is sort of the face of AIMHO within the region. They help us with our regional branding. They oversee a collection of articles and publications of the association's electronic newsletter, which is called the AIMHO Angle. Hopefully you've all been able to read the AIMHO Angle when it comes out. If not, go to the main webpage, www.aimho.org, and you'll find information in past editions of the AIMHO Angle. They also oversee our social media accounts, which could include Facebook and Twitter. The next committee is really our largest committee of volunteers, and it's our Program Committee. The Program Committee is responsible for the structure and the content of our annual AIMHO conference. So these volunteers are pretty busy right now with our annual conference coming up in about a week and a half. The Program Committee oversees the networking opportunities during the annual conference, in which newer professionals have an opportunity to get to know mid-level and senior housing officers. The Program Committee also organizes a newcomers orientation, in which new conference attendees can come and receive an orientation to the annual conference. And I'd pause just to put a plug in right here. That for anybody who might be attending the annual conference in Las Vegas, I would highly recommend that you go to the newcomers orientation on Sunday afternoon. It'll really give you a better understanding of how to get the most out of the annual conference, so make sure you schedule that in. The Program Committee also helps to oversee the case study competition during the annual conference. This is where entry-level professionals get to work to solve a housing issue, and as a team, they present their ideas to a panel of judges. The winning team is selected, and they usually receive a little bit of a monetary award for that. And there's also recognition for second and third place as well. Program Committee members also serve as liaisons to program presenters during the annual conference, which is very important. Now, one thing I will say about the Program Committee, when I started introducing our committees, I mentioned that you do not have to attend the annual conference in order to volunteer on an AIMHO committee. The Program Committee is the one exception. It's the only committee, really, where attendance at the annual conference is highly recommended and highly encouraged. And the reason being, there is a lot that they need to accomplish to make sure that the annual conference runs smoothly. So having volunteers there on the committee is really important for this Program Committee. The next committee I'd love to talk about is the Show Institute. So this is sort of like the AIMHO College Pre-Conference in that it's an event for new and aspiring senior housing officers, and it occurs just before the annual conference as well. And sort of like AIMHO College, members in the Show Institute, they continue to build their skills and their knowledge in a variety of areas. They also network among other senior housing officers, which is a huge important component for them as they're moving into senior housing positions. When you volunteer on this committee, it allows you the opportunity to assist in the planning and the execution of the Show Institute. Now, there is an encouragement that ideally senior housing officers are committee members, so that might be something to keep in mind. The last thing I'd love to talk about is not so much a committee as much as a voluntary position within AIMHO, and it's the state and provincial representative position, SPRs we call them. And basically an SPR is chosen for each state within the region, and they serve as a liaison to all those schools within that state and the AIMHO Association. So they are a liaison between AIMHO and the schools within their state. And I've listed all the states there on the screen, and you can see all of them, including Saskatchewan. So they have an opportunity when you're in an SBR role. You get an opportunity to get to work with other housing colleagues outside of the annual conference throughout the year by outreaching to them within your state. And at the AIMHO conference, the SBRs are responsible for leading the state meetings for the members who are attending the conference from each of the states. It's kind of like having a town hall in which they sort of moderate and lead that meeting. If you want to volunteer as a state and provincial rep, it is a 2-year commitment, and members are selected on alternating years. If you look at the list I have on the screen, they're in 2 columns on purpose. The schools on the left, beginning with Nevada and ending with schools in Saskatchewan, would be elected for 2 years. And then on the next year, schools from Arizona to Idaho would be elected on 2 years. It allows there to be a little bit of an overlap so that we don't lose all of our SBRs at the same time. I'd say for those of you who've been listening to this webinar and have been involved in the AIMHO region for a while, your next logical and maybe a wonderful professional step might be for you to consider a role on our AIMHO Executive Committee. Our executive board really leads, it offers the leadership and the guidance that we need to really the entire AIMHO Association. Our executive board volunteers are the decision-making body, but I would say they rely upon feedback and input from member schools to inform the decisions that are made on behalf of the association. We also look for feedback and input from those who volunteer on the variety of committees within the association to help them be a decision maker. Many of us who have had the opportunity to serve in roles on the executive board have seen it as complementing our professional development as mid-level and senior housing officers. And I can speak from personal experience that serving on the executive board in a variety of positions was really the highlight of my professional career within my many years here in housing and student affairs. The positions that we have on the executive board include our president-elect, which is a 3-year term. That colleague moves from being the president-elect to the president to the past president. There's also a secretary position, which is a 2-year term. We also have a treasurer-elect position, which is a 3-year term. It's sort of like our president-elect position, in that the treasurer-elect begins by sort of shadowing and observing what our treasurer does before moving into that role. We also have a member-at-large entry-level who really is in the role for 2 years, and they help to be the voice of entry-level professionals. We also have a member-at-large senior level who's also in the role for 2 years, and they hope to be the voice of our senior level professionals who are within the region. At this upcoming AIMHO conference, there will be 4 positions that we will be electing to the executive board, 4 new positions, and they would include that president-elect position, secretary, treasurer-elect, and also our member-at-large entry level. So it's something that's pretty exciting that happens during the annual conference. So that's basically the information I'd like to share with you all today, and I hope you found this webinar to be helpful as you consider what is your motivation for volunteering, whether it's professional or personal in your life. I'd say as I look back on my personal life, my opportunities to volunteer in various roles within my community have led me to feeling much more a part of my hometown and even my state, and it's opened the door to a variety of friends outside of my work setting. And as I look back on my professional life, my opportunities to volunteer with AIMHO in particular, they've led to a very fulfilling professional career, one in which I've learned a variety of new skills that I don't get to do every day in my job, and one in which I would say I have some very dear friends and colleagues from within this large region of ours, colleagues who I can pick up the phone and call or send an email to at any time, and they're there to help me out. Their input and the relationships that we've had through our volunteering together, it's really helped improve my quality of work and the quality of life as a result. So I just want to thank Shadeen again for assisting with this webinar, and I want to thank everyone who may have an opportunity to listen into it. I've put my contact information there on the last slide, so I would hope that if you have any other questions that you'd be free to reach out to me with an email at any point. I'd sure love to continue to talk about volunteering within AIMHO. It's something that's near and dear to my heart. And for anybody who's attending next week's conference in Las Vegas, I hope you'll stop by and say hi to me when our paths cross. I look forward to that. So thank you again, everyone.